want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet here with Guy Goldstein. Golan will be trying to join us in a few seconds. You're safe there, right? Safe and sound. And
Safe and sound. 18 rounds into the Iranian response, but we're still here and still kicking.
And the night skies are, have you gotten as many alarms today? Have they stopped?
Today there have been endless alerts, no sirens. So far so good, touch wood. It's a very strange war. This is the strangest war I've been in, and having been here for 15 years, I've been through a few.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's safe to say that, JFK had a great line. And if I mess this up, it's basically success has many parents, failure is an orphan. And what I find interesting is this is one of the most amazing missions so far, thank God, that I think you could say in a generation, maybe a couple of generations, that America has launched. And obviously they're doing it with Israel. And I can't wait to see all the people that, as Congress passed and allowed, you brought this up, the fact that they even voted on this was ridiculous in the first place with the War Powers Act. But you're going to see a lot of the people, and you're starting to see people twist a little bit right now saying, oh, it's a good thing. But they don't realize we have receipts of what they said a week and a half ago or 2 days ago.
I like to call it post-COVID gaslighting. You remember after COVID when everything started to become clear and a lot of the things that were called conspiracy theories turned out to be true, and everyone said, I know, I always said that was true. Like, I was there. That wasn't what you said. Like it's going to be that all over again. Like everyone knew, we all agreed. What do you mean? I wasn't disagreeing with you. We were saying that we could do this and that it was going to be flawless. Except Tucker Carlson.
Listen, you're 100% right. I started seeing like a couple podcasters even change, like Michael Knowles, who's got his own version of Catholicism, who, started dissecting the Rubio thing. And I could promise you this, 4 days ago or a week ago, he would have been saying Rubio said Israel brought us into the war. But he spent 6 minutes of watching the recording, dissecting it, showing that Rubio didn't say this. So you're starting to see it in a couple. You're starting to see it on Fox News with people like Laura Ingraham realizing, hey, we need invites to the White House. I mean, let's be honest. That's what it's about.
Well, I don't think it's just we need invites to the White House. I think we were talking about this the other night on the podcast. There's nothing more American than wanting to than winning. And this war, this war looks a hell of a lot like winning. And a lot of people don't want to be the person that said, oh, no, we shouldn't try that when we couldn't possibly. And so I think there's just a natural shift towards, like you said, success has many parents, but they're not all there before the birth.
Well played. There's a lot going on today. There's really a lot going on. And one of my favorite stories of the day is Israel taking out the IRGC commander who plotted the assassination of President Trump. And when I say took him out, shot him dead. And I think they asked Hegseth if that's what they wanted. So obviously it was a ground op with whatever version of the Mossad there is. And he was taken out.
So
Done.
we don't know exactly what happened, but we were told that they tried to take a shot at Trump, and in the end, he got shot. It was one of the interesting things about this, and Pete Hegseth was talking about it in the speech that we named the show after. By the way, I am enamored by that speech. I thought it was a phenomenal speech, and I'm going to talk about it in more detail later. But one of the things he talked about was he put that guy on the target list. Specifically, he said, we didn't prioritize it, but we put it on the list so that when we got to him, we could take him out. And I think that the level of both declaring that that person was going to be a target, but also showing openly and transparently the responsibility that they weren't going to put personal animus above mission success. Again, it was one of those things that Hegseth just casually threw in that was flawless today in his message.
Yeah, we're going to get into those speeches a little bit. We're going to get into the Pete Hegseth speech, and we're also going to get into the Brad Cooper 2-minute video I mean, it was amazing, that video guy. In 2 minutes, he explained every single thing that is going on, and he did it amazingly well. Just amazing. It made you just feel, obviously made you feel confident, but it's like, it's like compared to the last administration, you're like, whoa. If you're objective, if you're honestly objective, guy, and you look at the difference between Hegseth and Austin, whoever was CENTCOM commander then and who CENTCOM,
Guerrilla.
it's like the confidence. And it's like, this is the thing. It's okay to question President Trump. It is. It's okay
Yep.
to always question your president. But there's a difference between questioning him and doubting. And
Mhm.
that's something I've never really done is doubt him. And for all those doubters, you are where you are.
Absolutely, and I think, and again, I guess to finish your first thought before moving to your second, the fact
Thank you.
I think it's
Thank you. Thank you for doing what ChatGPT says I do terribly, which is start a thought, but don't finish it because it's your job to finish the thought.
that's okay. The first thing is it's when they say Israel's the model ally, it's worth noting we took out the guy. Israel took out the guy that was responsible for the operation to try to assassinate President Trump. Two operations, in actual fact. Israel also took out the guy who was responsible for the Beirut bombings in the 80s. And it is a point of pride on our side of the equation that we've been able to avenge those things on behalf of our allies. And I think that there is a level of commitment and affection there that I think those two missions are really going to come to highlight. We take out, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed this, but Donald Trump is this far from starting to call the Iranians bad hombres. I've just been watching the way he speaks, and he just starts calling them bad this, bad that. But
Well, I just love the term lunatics. I mean, he used it, Rubio used it. And you know what? You know why you have to use those words, Guy? Because the media is so dishonest.
Mhm.
So no matter what you say, if you get too wordy with the public for sound bites, they understand the word lunatic.
Mhm.
And Rubio was fantastic yesterday too, when he was explaining, when you take all the ballistic missiles, right, and you keep adding them up over months upon months upon months, there's a certain point where where they'll be immune from us, right?
Mhm.
That they will have immunity from airstrikes. And it was sort of the perfect word. So they're trying to really use words and describe this that everybody could get and the media cannot manipulate.
I like to think of it as the Donald Trumpification of the entire administration. You
Yeah.
give everyone a nickname, you find the shortest path to an idea, and you reuse that idea over and over again to make sure that everybody understands that when you say Sleepy Joe, that means all of these other mimetic ideas that are behind it. And I think it took Rubio a little bit longer than other people because he is prim and proper and very put together. I think now
He
that he's added that to his arsenal, it's very cool to see. It
Well,
is.
he got pissed off. Don't ever clip
Yeah,
Marco Rubio for 7 seconds out of context. I mean, he really got pissed about getting clipped.
absolutely, and rightfully so. I mean, look, this is one of those things that, particularly in times of war, the administration is relying on the media to be able to convey information to the American people. The fact that the media go and abuse that trust, it's a violation not only of the trust of the people, but it's also a violation of the trust that the White House is putting in them. And essentially, they're no longer fit for purpose. Donald Trump's Truth Social is a more effective tool for the American people than the entirety of the American media establishment because it allows the administration to communicate effectively directly with the American people. I
It's
really
true.
don't like the American media at the moment, in case that's not clear.
I don't like our American media. I don't like the world media. Before we go to the media to before we get into the serious stuff, which we already have, I think it's in good news. I mean, you can't make this story up. Tucker Carlson's Alp nicotine shipment truck was hijacked. A shipment of his Alp nicotine pouches that the FDA has yet to approve was hijacked. I think that's one of the funniest stories of the day. I mean, of
Yeah,
course, it was the Mossad.
I mean, of course, Israel is behind it. We needed the nicotine. We're flying late nights. Oh, it was, yeah. Look, any bad luck that befalls Tucker Carlson is going to be funny because of him. And that story was. I want to know who hijacked it, and I want to give them an award. Just why not? Having
Listen, it's breaking news. We're here. We're the Daily Chicha, giving you the news stories of the day. That is one of the news stories of the day.
So my favorite news story of the day is that for the first time in 30 years, there was a dogfight. 30 years, 40 years. For the first time in 40 years, there was a dogfight over the skies of the Middle East. And for the very first time in history, an F-35 has recorded a victory in a dogfight. It knocked another plane out of the sky. It was an F-35I, the Israeli Adil model. It was an Israeli pilot and it took out one of the Iranian planes. Granted, not the best, not the most capable enemy, but nonetheless a landmark moment. American technology, Israeli know-how, taking out the
Somebody. Okay, before, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but for those listening and tuning in, you are listening to the Daily Cheat Sheet. We do Rumble Live, and I'm here with Guy Goldstein. Golan is trying to get connectivity, and somebody in the rants just sorry.
Spanish technology, less reliable.
That's exactly right. And it's the Spanish coming after him. But somebody said about the person, somebody said in reference to who hijacked Tucker Carlson's truck, it was Laura Loomer. I think I got to give you, that's one of the, that's one of the funniest lines. Della Mello, you win the award. Anyways, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
No, so I think that it was a historic day today. For the first time in 40 years, there was a dogfight won, and thank God it was won by our team, an Israeli pilot and American tech. For the first time since World War II, a submarine sunk an enemy naval vessel off the coast of Sri Lanka, which is the first time since World War II that a submarine has sunk anything, not just the particular location. So again, historic, and the footage of it is incredible.
And
it's like watching a history documentary.
And you are a true lover of the 7 Top Gun movies that have been made.
All 7.
So
and
that's
I look
why you
forward
absolutely.
to Top Gun 8.
That's why, and we were joined by Golan Ramraz. I just have to say this story, Golan, because you missed it, but we were talking about the Alp truck of Tucker Carlson's nicotine truck getting hijacked, and De La Mello and the rants. We were like, guys, like we don't know, we don't know who did it. They suggested it was Laura Loomer, and I think that is like one of the best jokes of the year, and so yeah, I just wanted to catch you up on. I think that's one of the funniest stories. So, guys, talking about the F-35 that shot down the plane, and what's even more interesting to this story, Golan, his father also made history, right, by shooting down a different plane, right? Am I mistaken on that?
Have to confirm that. I actually haven't heard that part yet.
I sent that link to you, man. You're my source.
I didn't get a chance to read the second story about it. I'd already read the first story about it.
Okay, Golan, you could talk and say hello.
Well, hello. I didn't want to interrupt you guys. We're right in the middle of a flow, so I've been trying to get in.
We don't have flow. Guy and I don't really have a flow. It's like flowy.
Well, I've been having some technical difficulties getting in, but I'm glad I was able to make it. You guys are talking about the F-35 that shot down the Iranian plane over Tehran. It's kind of amazing, right? I don't know how much you've talked about it already, but what is it? The first air-to-air kill of a manned aircraft by an F-35 in history. It's pretty badass stuff. This feels like I heard you talking about Top Gun when I came in, so I assume you've already gone through the motions on that one. But man, a real life dogfight, it's been a bit. So I was excited about that.
Listen, I think it's something we should be excited about, and it also shows the cooperation between the United States and America. I think it's absolutely fantastic. This whole mission, Golan, thank God, so far it's going amazing. And what we were discussing at the beginning of the show is there's that famous line, I think JFK said, his success has many fathers, failure is an orphan. And you're going to start seeing all the people that were poo-pooing this and, boots on the ground. And we spoke about this on the show. We said the boots on the ground would be the Kurds. Okay. We always have said that on this show, that the Kurds would be the boots on the ground. And, Golan, it's like there's something special about watching a people being liberated. And I don't think that message is being said enough, is how often in a lifetime do we get to watch 80 million people be liberated? That's beautiful.
It's actually kind of beyond the fact that it's historic. It's something that we just don't get to see anymore. These are the things we see in the movies. These are not things we see in real life. And what's happening right now with the Kurds coming across the border and fighting on behalf of this is what, first of all, this is what we hoped was going to happen. But also, this is the escalation that will make all of the difference in the world. This is a serious escalation that takes it from a regional to a global thing. something that will actually now not only come to fruition, I think, in a way that we couldn't have hoped for if this hadn't happened, but also is going to be something that makes this something that the rest of the world can start to rally behind, because it's real easy to not rally behind it if you are anti-Trump, if you are anti-Jew, but now it's about people liberating themselves. It's hard for this narrative to be shot down, so to speak.
It should be said the Kurds have fought valiantly before and have had their narrative shot down because it's hard, but it's not impossible.
Nothing is
However,
impossible with the people that we're talking about, but right now is a bit of a different narrative than it ever was in the past.
so I want to pull a Golan for a moment and say that
Ooh, I'm excited.
I want to expand a little bit on who the Kurds are so that we
Yeah.
can get some context to what are we
The
talking about
student
when
has
we say
become the
Kurds?
teacher, please.
Okay, but but before you go on with this, because I did send you the message in WhatsApp. So the Israeli pilot who earlier today became the first in the world to down a plane with the F-5 is the son of another Israeli pilot who was the first in the world to down a plane with an F-16 in 1981.
That's very cool. And it proves the point that we've made on this podcast before, which is that Israel is the proving ground for American technology. Yeah. This is where American technology goes to go from being great to being impossibly good, impossibly great.
Yeah, I just gave you a great Top Gun, and that's the best you got. Anyways, go on with the Kurds. Tell us who they are.
Okay, so it's important to understand that the Kurds are an ethnic group, and they're one of the ethnic groups that were really neglected after the end of the First World War. Everybody after the First World War, when the Ottoman Empire fell apart, sort of got together, and they came up with the mandatory system, and they figured out, we'll give this to we'll give the Iraq or Mesopotamia to this group, and we'll give the Arabian Peninsula to this group, and we'll give the mandate for Palestine to the Jews. And then there were the Kurds, and nobody actually let them into the conversation because they didn't know where to put them. Are they Arab? Are they not Arab? Are they Muslim? Are they not Muslim? Nobody really understood what to do with the Kurds. And so for 100 years, they have been denied sovereignty. And unlike other people who cry about sovereignty, the Kurds have really maintained a consistent identity for a very long time. They have maintained social cohesion. They have done everything they could to build the infrastructure of state, particularly in Iraq, where the Kurds have been able to, after the fall of, after the second Gulf War, the Kurds were able to actually establish an autonomous zone with US protection and really do a good job of building infrastructure for themselves in Erbil, which you've heard of a bit because the Iranians have been very heavily bombarding Erbil, specifically because it's the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan, effectively. But they're a separate ethnic group whose their homeland spreads out across Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. And as a result, they do still have relationships between those different groups. So what you're seeing now, for example, is the Iraqi Kurds, who, as we said, have already got their own semi-autonomous protectorate, pushing over the border into Iran to support the Iranian Kurds, who have often been the victims of the most abusive behavior of the Islamic regime. So this is a unique ethnic group with an ancestral claim to the region that they're in. Is not the politics of it are far less simple than the narrative of it. There's a lot of debate as to whether or not the Iranian Kurds should be part of Iran or part of a greater Kurdish project. The people there on the ground are split between those two identities. But this is a very distinct group who have historically also been very strongly allied with Western powers, whether it was the British or the United States. So
Did you touch on the Treaty of Sèvres?
only vaguely in saying that they were ignored they were mostly ignored back then.
So I will say that. So this is a little piece of trivia that people don't know about the Kurds, right? Is that they actually, there was a treaty, worldwide treaty, after World War One, Treaty of Sèvres, I believe it was 1920, that basically promised them their own homeland, and it was part of Iran. It was the Western Iran was meant to be a Kurdish homeland, and it was replaced 3 years later with another treaty. I don't remember which treaty it was, but
Treaty of Lausanne.
Thank you, Treaty of Lausanne. And when that happened, they just wiped that whole thing off the map. The whole thing they had been promised, they basically were divided then, as you mentioned, like between Iran, Iraq, and Turkey, and Syria, and they just remained this stateless nation. But there was a moment when it was a done deal. They had their own land. It was on paper. It was signed. They knew it was coming. And then suddenly it just went up in smoke. So it's kind of interesting because even people who, are aware that the Kurdish are this stateless nation weren't aware that there was a time that it was a done deal. And it was very specifically delineated amongst borders. So it's kind of an interesting thing. They've been fighting for their own homeland. I don't just mean wanting it, but I mean literally in battle for it since before the Islamic Revolution, since before the Shah, since before like 19 teens.
Well, I thank you both, and the people that will listen to this show will thank you both because we are all the smarter because of both of you. But I really
Can I
want
tell
to.
you something, Judah, that's interesting
No,
about
no,
all
I
that?
just complimented you, and
No, I just want to tell you that
just say thank.
Guy and I, before this podcast ever started, do you remember this guy? He and I had a conversation about this very thing. So it's by chance. This is something, as you were talking about it, I was like, we've had serious deja vu. We've had this conversation offline. Guys who are listening, all of our listeners, this is the kind of stuff we talk about just for S's and giggles offline.
Thank you for that exciting add-on. You've really added on a lot with that.
Thank you.
But I want to just, before Guy goes, because Guy did name the title, and I think it's a great title with bringing up Pete Hegseth, taking the gloves off, and Admiral Brad Cooper. But I think it's really important for America. We've lost a lot of faith in the CIA, in the FBI, and for good reason for a long time. And what we're witnessing now, and we've seen the Mossad have their name just absolutely destroyed. And what we're witnessing now with the CIA, run by John Radcliffe, a good man, a great man, and the Mossad working hand in hand to supply weaponry, Guy, so that the Kurds can actually do this mission. And it really brings me, again, this pride thing with President Trump bringing America back to where we have pride in our initial organizations like the CIA and the FBI. So this is sort of an amazing thing that they're doing. It's something that we predicted on the show would actually happen. So God bless them for doing this. This is incredible.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's part of this story that will hopefully be part of the permanent record is that the Israeli Air Force specifically destroyed a lot of Iranian border facilities between Iraq and Iran, opening up the path for the Kurds to come through. So this was obviously something that was planned at the highest levels. And the fact is, all right, this operation in general, huge amount of credit goes to the Mossad, but I think huge amount of credit goes to the CIA, who are clearly involved in their own way and doing things in the way that the CIA was supposed to always do things when it made. The CIA was supposed to be the clandestine arm of American diplomacy. It was supposed to be out there in the world, making the world move in the direction that America wanted it to. And it wasn't supposed to be trying to manipulate, trying to deal with petty things or manipulate American politics. This is what it was there for. It was there to make sure that if America has to deal with a situation anywhere in the world, it has the upper hand.
And intelligence agencies don't suddenly become effective or ineffective on their own. They're tools, and their effectiveness depends on how leadership is willing to use them. And what we're seeing now is what happens when a president actually trusts American strength again. And we're watching President Trump use that kind of the intelligence and military power with clarity and decisiveness instead of hesitation. It's something that we haven't seen. In fact, in the past handful of
Nixon.
Absolutely. And in the past, some of the administrations.
Look at you guys. You're finishing each other's sentences. It's so cute.
Can I say? We're adorable.
I couldn't understand the word you guys just said, but you finished it and you said, and go on. You're like, yeah, that sounds perfect. I didn't understand thank you.
Say it again, Guy.
No, I mean, like, we need closed captioning with the two of you.
You'll actually really like what he said. Say it again, Guy.
No, I was going to say that the last time that that there was such close alignment between the CIA and the president was Nixon bringing down the Soviet Union.
I
And
told
then
you
the
you'd like
CIA
it,
bringing
Judah.
down Nixon.
And then the CIA got
Oh,
Nixon.
sure.
But you know,
But this is honestly, it matters enormously when it comes to geopolitics, because not only is the matter internally, but allies notice immediately when American leadership becomes strong again. And we don't need our allies hedging their bets, as we've seen. Can we rely on the United States, like when Biden abandoned our allies, or when frankly, they're paying off enemies of the country? This is something that really, really matters. And those allies realign with Washington real effing quick when they see that might is being applied. And that's what's happening now.
Yeah. Well said,
Right.
both of you. I want to bring up something because I think this is extremely important. Caroline Levitt was great today during the press briefing when she slammed the reporter who, she said you're repeating, Iran's propaganda. I don't think it's just Iran's propaganda. It's the podcast world's propaganda too, which is that, the 170 now. It's 170 schoolgirls that were killed in the fog, that were allegedly killed in the fog of war. We have no idea whether this story is even true or not. Going on the past, I could say with a 50-50 prediction that this story actually never happened. But
So
the bigger point being is, as you love to say, Golan, everybody clutching their pearls about the 170. Those people, where were they when the 30,000 or 35,000 Iranians were being slaughtered? They were nowhere
It's the
because it
same
did
people
not
quiet. It
fit
wasn't just the
their.
Iranians. They were quiet when the Christians were slaughtered. They were quiet when the Jews were
But
slaughtered. They were quiet when the
no, but
Allies were
just
slaughtered.
go on. People have the memory of Ananus.
Fair enough.
I mean, so let's just go back to a week, a month ago when they slaughtered 32,000 people. Okay, nothing, not 170 girls, supposedly. All of a sudden, Israel and America are mass murderers. Not the Iranian regime who slaughtered 32,000 people because it doesn't fit a narrative. How sick of a person do you have to be? Like, how much of a degenerate, rotten soul do you have to not talk about that? But this, because it fits this sick anti-American, anti-Semitic narrative, anti-Zionist narrative, whatever you want to call it, this you highlight. You sick freaks out there. Sorry.
no, I was going to say we actually know a lot about this incident. We know him because I wrote an article about it I published an article about it the other day. It's the media's addiction to terrorism, right? It's not even that we don't know that there was an incident. It's not even that we don't know that there were people killed. It's that the things that the media leaves out make their behavior criminal, right? Because they're not talking about the fact that there was this school was on an IRGC base. They don't talk about the fact that half of the victims have been identified as children. Half of the victims haven't. There's 84 of the 167 have seemed to be adults, which is an awfully impressive teacher to student ratio.
But again, that's why I'm saying, Guy, even going with your numbers, which I believe to be obviously, I believe your sources and all your numbers, even then, it's like.
But I'm saying that the narrative isn't evil America and Israel bomb schoolgirls, which is what the media have tried to turn it into, because the media are not only addicted to terrorism, but they can only sustain themselves by promoting terrorism. That is now their lifeline. That is the only reason they survive. And so they're incentivized to create these hyperbolic, hysterical, and dishonest narratives that are going to stir people up and make people go crazy. And then they're trying to catch people out with sound bites to try to legitimize their own lies.
100%. And this is how the media works now. This is how the media ecosystems work now. Frankly, it's not even necessarily malice. It's the way they are literally designed. I mean, it is malice, but it's the way they are designed now. It is the way they are instructed to report now. It is the way newsrooms, literally their hierarchy, are going to tell them, this is what we'd like you to do. We'd like you to find that single image, that backpack in the rubble, and we want that to be the image that goes around
AI
the world.
generated backpack in the rubble, by the way.
Usually AI generated, absolutely.
Well, no, it's confirmed that it was AI generated. generated. It actually had the Google Gemini watermark on it.
But the idea of, even if it wasn't AI generated, the idea that you would focus on one backpack in the rubble because it's an image that is going to strike, sorrow in the hearts of viewers, and then you're going to ignore 30,000 murdered people because, hey, if it bleeds, it
New York
leads. But
Times cover of the starving child in Gaza.
you
all
got
over
it,
again.
and 1,000 other examples too.
Shooter, if you're speaking, I can't hear you.
There's something, Golan, you missed in the beginning of the show that I brought up with Guy that you're starting to see with certain podcasters, just the lowest of the low, people like Michael Knowles, who I said, who has his own brand of Catholicism, which apparently a lot of people have, including the Pope. He was actually defending Rubio yesterday, and you're starting to see a few trickle, like Benny Johnson's, and they're starting to go because they realize they need the invitation to the White House, and Laura Ingraham. They want to be welcomed back because President Trump gave a smackdown the other day to Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly.
Yeah.
And, I want to ask you this both, just totally, because I want to just, have you ever seen OAN, One America News? Have any of you ever watched this news station?
I have not. Guy has.
It's not a news station. It's like an infomercial. It's like Matt Gaetz is on it. I'm convinced he's paying for ad time. And he had that douchebag Douglas McGregor on, Dougie, who I've had the unfortunate opportunity to talk to on 2 different occasions. And he was repeating Tehran Bob's lies about how all our bases are destroyed all over. And Matt Gaetz has this guy on. And I'm sitting to myself going, who allows this to be? Like, if you're OAN, your supposed news network, and they do have White House credentials, you got to lose this stuff, man. It's like, we got to thin the herd, whatever that expression is that the ranchers used. I'm not a rancher, so I don't know the term, go on. but we got to really start. This is dangerous stuff. I mean, even if it is only 15,000 people are listening, it's 15,000 people that are walking around thinking with some of the worst knowledge you could have.
I mean, you're talking about the entire, again, the news ecosystem. One of the biggest problems in modern public life is the credibility of the news industry has collapsed. And also, what the hell is the news industry anyway? When you have people who literally are going to, I'm going to use his name again, say it too many times and Beetlejuice is going to show up, but Tucker Carlson for their news, where they are literally hearing him say, Saudi Arabia arrested Mossad agents because they were going to start launching explosives or blowing up buildings. And it turns out, of course, and he said about the same thing about Qatar, and even the Qatari government was like, those were Iranians? What are you talking about? Guy on our payroll? Like, it's very strange that this is what news has become anymore. It's not because suddenly people have become irrational. It's because audiences have watched the media get major stories wrong over and over and over again, sometimes by accident, sometimes deliberately. And at this point, there's no way to know when the narrative is something you could take with total certainty or not. They always say it. They always report on it. Now, we know exactly what happened. I remember there was a moment when I've always been kind of a news junkie. And there was a moment when suddenly you would read the paper or you would read a magazine, but it was online. And suddenly there were a ton of typos. That had never really happened before. Tons of typos. And it was because everyone wanted to be first to a story. They wanted to be the one to break the story. So they weren't giving it to their editor to make sure that information was right. They weren't verifying information. They weren't even doing a spell check. They would quickly vomit it out and put it out there. And then if it was wrong, they would just delete it off the internet. And by the way, you see it now. Do you know that today the New York Times sends out the same article with different information in it and different headlines to see which one generates the most clicks? Because they're looking like BuzzFeed used to do, because they're looking for clicks and views. They're not looking to educate or inform. And then the one that manages to get the most clicks, they delete the other 2 offline and they just have that one be the narrative. We've seen incorrect headlines remain online, but only I got it and Guy didn't. Guy got a different headline. This is just, it's no longer the news. It's just all content. It's disgusting.
And I just want to say something to you. It's a very good point, obviously, but I don't care how many times we bring up these people's names. If there was a drinking game every day now where every time Marjorie Taylor Greene texted about Israel and foreign wars, and every time she mentioned that you had to have a shot, everybody would be dead. Okay, that's how many times this
Yeah.
crazy broad from this crazy broad from Georgia, I mean, has gone off the rails, go on. I mean, literally zero rails.
Yeah, no, she is in good company. She happens to be one of the primary sources, again, that many people are using for their news. You know, when she goes on Megyn Kelly, and this is one of the things that got the Trump smackdown, and her and Megyn, you know, chittering like some like the sewing circle, talking about how, oh, you know, people didn't die for America, they died for Iran, they died for Israel. These phrases that mean nothing, that are backed up by nothing, that have no basis in fact, and yet they say it. Why? Again, they get the clicks, they get the views, or in Marjorie Taylor Greene's case, they get the paychecks. So absolutely, everything at this point, it's not cynicism. There's pattern recognition to this. We need to stop believing the pieces of, I was going to say the first version of the story, but at this point, it's not just the first. The corrections don't come out of the newsroom anymore. When they do, much like the New York Times, they'll put the primary story on their main Twitter that has tens of millions of followers, but they'll put the correction on their secondary Twitter that has tens of thousands of followers. So at this point, we can't even trust their corrections anymore. There is no more truth coming out of the media.
You're 100% correct. It's also important, just for the news, 53 Republicans in the Senate voted not, and Fetterman was the only Democrat that switched sides with the war powers. And good for the Republicans for sticking together, minus Shia head Rand Paul. And again, I will always say, Golan, I totally understand why his next door neighbor beat the crap out of him. I mean, he's one of the, you know, sometimes when somebody gets, you know, beaten up, you're like, well, how can you do that to a person? Rand Paul, I'm not encouraging more people to do it, but I understand why his neighbor actually did it.
Right. This is one of those, we don't approve of it, and yet we understand it. And, you know, someone sent me a message today. I'm not going to say who it was, but I thought it was interesting. They were comparing what's going on now to what happened in the 1930s. And I'm just going to read part of this. Democrats behaving like the Democrat Party behaved in the 1930s, warning FDR about joining the war. FDR knew we'd have to join eventually, and that 2-year wait led to the slaughter of millions. Another parallel is Begin's decision to bomb the nuclear facility in Osirak in 1981. Everyone condemned Israel, including Ronald Reagan. Of course, we know that behind the scenes he complimented, but still, it all publicly was condemnation. And destroying that nuclear facility saved the world. This is not the first time we have seen people be captured by ideology, by party, as opposed to saying, you know what? There are good things and there are bad things. And it's okay for me to support something moral, even if it comes from the other side. At this point, if President Trump cured cancer, you would see people like Chuck Schumer come out and say, you know, maybe cancer ain't so bad. Maybe I have to rethink this whole thing. It is a very sad state of affairs.
Did you see that thing with Chuck Schumer yesterday where he said we can never allow Israel to get nuclear weapons? And then they had to call him back, like, because he obviously, supposedly he had his Freudian slip. And
that's when you are so prepared and poised to say the anti-Trump thing that happens to extend to the allies that you give a Freudian slip, supposedly. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Okay, before I let Guy go with his Pete Hegseth thing, because I really want I want to give Guy the floor for 3.5 minutes. I sent you guys the video, which is an amazing video that's circulating on X, and it's like an AI of Trump and Bibi. And like in the beginning, you're not really sure what's going on. You think it's a knock on them. And then it's like all of a sudden they're like, you know, we waited too long. And it was like, and the Europeans are disagreeing with what we're doing. And it's just like that. It's a brilliant AI video. I'm not doing it enough justice by even describing it. But the reason I bring it up, Guy, is because I love that Macron today came out and said that Israel should not go on the ground and attack Hezbollah. Because Bibi's sitting there going, well, Macron, yeah.
There was a fantastic meme from early in the war.
My favorite meme.
Where it has sort of the split screen of Bibi calling Macron and saying, Macron, Macron, I need your help. And Macron being like, Bibi, I'm not going to join the war. And he says, no, Macron, I need your help to show them how to surrender.
Okay, so talk a little bit about this Pete Hegseth. Listen, we all love Pete Hegseth. I mean, let's just go down the names quickly of who Trump has with him. He's got Rubio. He's got Bessent, who we love. He's got Hegseth. He's got Raising Cane. He's got Brad Cooper. Who am I missing on this? I said Rubio, right? Who am I missing on this list of like some of the most formidable, Stephen Miller, some of the most formidable people an administration has ever had in their cabinet or appointed?
I assume you left Steve Witkoff off on purpose.
Oh, no, Steve Witkoff.
He was on message yesterday.
Steve Witkoff since yesterday has impressed me.
He's had a great 24 hours.
Yeah, he's had a remarkable time. Steve Witkoff he's changed my mind about him in the last 24 hours.
So, look, first of all, yes, the gang of eight are killing it. Trump and his insiders, the people who he's actually trusting to help with this mission, are incredible. The people heading up the United States Army, when Trump says in his first administration he rebuilt the army, he didn't just have to rebuild it because it was the equipment was getting rusty. He had to rebuild its attitude, and I think that the capstone of that was Pete Hegseth. The fighting men are incredible. The fighting men and women, the servicemen and women who are serving, the leadership is incredible. Brad Cooper is a rock star. The grace with which he commands such strategic brilliance is something that is really, it's something to admire. But Pete Hegseth and his unapologetic attitude as Secretary of War has been phenomenal. And his speech today, as I said, I think it goes down as one of the great speeches in recent political history because of its pure, unabashed Americanness. It's pure, it's commitment to winning, and it's not having any F's to give about any criticisms, to throwing them out in real time as he goes through the speech, right? Some examples, right? He started off his speech, classic Trumpian humility. I stand before you today with one unmistakable message about Operation Epic Fury. America is winning decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy. That's how you start a speech about a war. If you're the Secretary of War, that's what you want to hear, right? Now, he went on. There was a line that he threw out later on, which I think is a phenomenal line, particularly to hear from the Secretary of War, which is, this is not a fair fight, and that's exactly how we want it. We're going to kick them while we're down because that's what you're supposed to do, right?
While they're down.
While they're down.
Yeah.
He really put in there, like, I don't want to hear, this is not proportionate. I heard him the other day talking about the fact that this wasn't proportionate. He is throwing all of the criticisms that he's seen thrown at Israel over the past couple of years. He's addressing them head on with his finger out, with his finger up, and with basically telling people, I'm not listening to your criticisms. They're not worth my time. We're going to do this. We're going to win this. And his entire speech follows that thread. And I think for the American public, it makes you want to support it. It is a speech that makes people want to buy in. When you start a speech with, there's one thing I have to tell you about this war, we're winning mercilessly, right? We're winning bigly, if you will. And the fact that it was so rah-rah America, and a little bit of rah-rah Israel, which was also a very pleasant thing to hear from our side. But talking about how phenomenal achievement this is. Again, we're in a generation that hasn't seen a real war. People under the age of 40 do not remember a real war. And I know.
And when we do remember war over the last handful of years, it's been something that has been picked apart and dissected on social media in a way that's made everyone forget that wars sometimes need to happen. And this is something that he addressed in his speech too, is he said, those who long for peace must prepare for war. Right? It's the old Roman principle. Like, this matters because he was saying our job. And when he said our job, he means the West, but he really means America as the global hegemon here, is to deter conflict. Deter conflict means, like, we're not looking for a fight, but that doesn't mean that if a fight comes our way, we're not going to fight it. He said, if necessary, defeat and completely destroy our enemies. That used to be the purpose of war. And more often than not lately, it's been, let's fight to a draw. Let's fight to a truce. Let's fight till we give you a pallet of cash and maybe you say, I won't do it anymore. It's no longer, we're going to just destroy you. It's very old school American military doctrine, which is badass.
And to go back to quoting Pete Hegseth, and I quote,
we have to get you a picture of him for your wall.
With or
we're
without a shot.
That's right.
no, we're gonna send you that picture. We're gonna get like a big picture of that day he was lifting.
I was going to say, you don't know that off camera, he's got a loop going right now, and it's RFK
Right.
and Hegseth just doing pull-ups. I mean, that's what inspires him when he does the podcast.
You know, can I tell you
Listen.
something? It's good to fanboy. It's good to fanboy about it.
You know
You
what?
know what?
I like to call. I call shots and I call fouls, and this was a shot. This was
I'm
a
trying to
brilliant
get that
It's
name.
called
play.
balls and strikes, Judah,
Balls
for
and
America.
whatever.
Yeah,
Shots, fouls. We play
I
different
call
sports.
guinea fowl, and I call, what is it? This is no, but you know what? I will agree
The
with
point
you,
is,
Judah.
credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
This was a This Hegseth has been phenomenal in his role, and his messaging is on point. And when you get up and you say things like, "We are only 4 days into this, and the results have been incredible, historic, really. Only the United States could lead this, only us." But when you add the Israeli Defense Forces, a devastatingly capable force, the combination is sheer destruction for our radical Islamist Iranian adversaries. Credit where credit is due, calling out the enemy by name, not pulling punches. They are toast and they know it, or at least soon enough they will know it. And we have only just begun to hunt, dismantle, demoralize, destroy, and defeat their capabilities. Right? There is no mincing words. There is no pretense of trying to have a soft touch. There is no, as Secretary of War, he understands. This is what the title was. He's taken off the gloves. He is not there for diplomacy. His diplomacy will happen with the B-52s that are currently leveling facility to IRGC facilities in Iran.
Yeah, and you mentioned fanboying, Judah, and I think it is healthy. I think that it's cool that you're this into Pete Hegseth. This is how into Marco Rubio I am, and I think that right now we're watching these two guys essentially compete for who can deliver the most epic, unapologetically American kind of patriotic tradition speech. Because while Hegseth is the Michael Bay version of Americana fighting right now. Rubio is like Cold War School of American Foreign Policy version. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, listen. We're right there. I'm right there with you. You know what it's like, Olin? You know what this negotiation reminds me of? It's like I don't know what Witkoff was doing or whatever. It was like Trump finally had it. It was like that scene from A Bronx Tale when the Hells Angels came into the bar. And they're like, you could have, Chaz Palminteri's character comes out, Sonny, and he's like, yeah, you just could have one drink, and then one beer or whatever, and then they started showering the beers, and then you leave, right? That was the deal. And then they started showering everybody with the beers, the bartender, and just making a mess. And they closed the door to the bar, and Chaz and Sonny goes, Nazis can't leave. And that
I can always count on you for the best references, man.
And that's like Trump's negotiating. We negotiated with you. Nazis can't leave. And I love that, that the next in line supposedly is the Ayatollah's son. And he hasn't said, I'll do it. You haven't heard any confirmation of him raising his hand, because he lives a very comfy life.
Well, there's also rumors that he was killed. So.
And these aren't rumors, is that he's impotent.
I was gonna say, this is the guy that couldn't find a wife, that he was impotent. He actually was treated for impotency. By the way, it's one of my favorite things is when all these terrorists are like going to London for their treatments, and they just head on right back over,
I
just love that there was no. I love that they broke.
London is the third capital of the Muslim Brotherhood today.
That's definitely true.
But I love that they broke the HIPAA violations, and they're like releasing all of.
I don't have HIPAA. It's the UK.
Yeah. No HIPAA here. Let's release his impotency. It took him 20 tries to have a kid. We had to work our asses off here in the UK. We don't even know if it's his kid. And no, that's just me. It's unreported. But no, you're right. It's great times to fanboy because we love this administration. We love it. We're proud of it. We're proud of our country. And this is something President Trump promised it. And that's why the polling is showing that 80% of Republicans are in favor of this now.
But we're also a podcast that talks a lot about messaging. And I think the messaging on this war has been phenomenal because they looked at what happened to Israel's war and they leaned into every possible criticism. So while Israel was getting bombarded by a whole bunch of people that were trying to slow the war down by talking about the tonnage of bombs being dropped, and Hegseth came out and said, in the line, the first 48 hours of the war, we dropped twice as much tonnage of bombs as in there's the shock and awe and that we live in Baghdad, and there's more to come, right? Once you say that, they can't come and criticize you for the amount of bombs, the tonnage of bombs that you dropped. He talked about the fact that they were going to be dropping 500-pound bombs, 1,000-pound bombs, 2,000-pound bombs, right? Once you put that out there, they can't come after you and try to tell stories about what a 2,000-pound bomb
they
is.
can
I know.
try, but now
They're
they
gonna use them.
sound like idiots because they come and they
Right.
say, "Can you believe?" And it's like, yeah, not only can I believe it, didn't you remember yesterday when I told you how proud I was of it? So what are you talking about? And you immediately cut the knees out from under the argument.
And so the messaging here has been incredibly on point. It has been it has understood the narrative war that it had to compete with, and it's winning on that front too, which, as we know from our experience, is possibly one of the most important fronts. And what you're seeing as a result is many countries already starting to get behind this. You know, I've seen that I've heard rumors that the RAF have already started operating flights in the air in theater. With what they're doing, probably very little. I haven't got a lot of hope or respect for the British at the moment, but they want to be on the winning team, and they don't want to be on the bad side of the person who is establishing that America is going to be the global hegemon again. And he makes the decisions based on who he likes and doesn't like.
You know, Golan, since you love my references, it really is like the A-Team.
Oh,
And President Trump is Hannibal Smith. Doesn't smoke the cigar, but he's like Hannibal
but
Smith.
he does
and
love
he's
it when
got
a
his
plan comes together.
and right. And you know, right now he's like, I just love it when a plan comes together. And to Guy's point, like a plan isn't one step ahead. It's not two, it's thinking 3 steps ahead. And
Yeah.
you know, to Guy's point, this is going better than even President Trump could have, I think, could have predicted, with all these countries aligning. They're aligning to the point of no return. That's the really good thing about what's going on,
Yeah.
especially with the Kurds going into Iran right now, is that Turkey hates the Kurds. So we're even, I mean, and by the way, forgive me, but the drone that sadly NATO shot out and didn't hit Turkey, screw you, NATO, you messed up again. Okay, it wouldn't. You could have allowed the drone to land in Turkey. Sorry.
Yes, we were aiming for Cyprus. You know, the extra 500 kilometers, no big deal.
Are you happy with my A-Team reference, Golan?
I love it, you know, and I think that, you know, if I'm going to fanboy, I would start to decide, okay, now hang on, which one is face, which one is B.A. Baracus? Oh man, this is something I'm going to have to take a little time on because this is going to be fun. And I will say that we're watching allies who, quote unquote, some allies I'm going to put in
Well,
quotes.
face is Pete Hegseth.
Pete, that's right. I mean, that's
face is Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
Marco Rubio is B.A. Baracus because he pitied the fool that tries to clip his posts.
But I will say that it's interesting watching a country like Spain, for instance, right?
Oh, and Miller is Murdoch.
That's absolutely. But it is interesting watching how a lot of these countries that initially were critical are now coming around, and even if they're not rah-rahing, they are like quietly supporting the quiet coalition in the background. They're going like, yeah, no, keep going. We won't say anything. We're openly supportive. We're not going to join or anything like that. But we're watching countries that a minute ago were critical of Trump that are now shutting their mouths. And a country like Spain that was like, you can't even use our border. You can't, anything in our borders is off limits to you. And then Trump was like, all right, you know what? We're done trading with you, period. And Spain was like, well, hey, wait a minute. we meant something the opposite of whatever we said. They immediately caved. You're watching this happen now because, again, you are watching America re-rise to the level of power that it once had as a result of President Trump's decisions. Worldwide, I'm talking about, and allies and enemies alike are noticing.
Listen, this is an amazing thing. And, you know, not everybody sees stories on X, and for some of the people we follow, I encourage everybody to follow Ayala Jacoby. And he posted this. First of all, there were amazing pictures of inside the bomb shelters. Did you see that? You know, where they were all singing "I Will Survive." I mean, that was so cool. Like there was a guy in a piano in the bomb shelter. It looked like a mini rave during Purim, and it was awesome. And outside, British citizens have gathered outside Manchester's iconic Islamic Center during a vigil held for the Ayatollah, and the crowd is dancing to Trump's YMCA. How how awesome is that? And that's how we beat the Islamic voices. Is we do it louder. You build a mosque, we'll be singing outside. You do this, this is what we're gonna do. Yeah, go.
Absolutely. I'm entirely with you. And I think that part of this is that the perception of power that the Iranians were able to project for so many years by talking a lot has been shattered by the president saying, I don't believe you. It's not even the emperor's naked. The emperor's basically, I don't even have an analogy for it. I'm out of analogies. This is such an extreme scenario. The emperor had his hands tied behind his back and was just waiting to be beheaded.
Okay,
And
I
everyone
just
was
gotta
pretending it wasn't the case.
I just have to give a few fun stories. I love that Israel has an app now for when you could take a shower during a ballistic missile strike, how much
This
time
is
you
a
have.
very important thing that is necessary during times of war. We've had today alone, I think there were 8 or 9 different barrages. And if you get caught in the shower while you're when the sirens go off, you wind up in a stairwell with 30 of your closest neighbors, all getting to inspect just how much you've been working out lately. And so people need to know, when is the time that you can shower. And if you don't shower because you don't want to wind up naked in a stairwell, then you wind up smelling in a stairwell. So you also have to shower.
This is,
It's a
by the
critical
way,
function
this is
that
something I
you
was
continue to
talking to a
work.
friend of mine earlier today who's in Israel, and he was saying that he's looking at these apps now to find out, 'cause sometimes you get 30 seconds, sometimes you get 90 seconds, but they're analyzing all of these patterns and they're saying, you can walk your dog, you can cook dinner, you can take a shower. I mean, this is.
They have dating apps. Who's single in the bomb shelter? I got to head to Israel. Okay. Okay. I want to, you guys, I got to fly to Israel now.
Dude,
Find
is
me a
like a
bride.
whole pool that I haven't alienated
Listen.
yet. Let's go.
I mean, and think about it. You're stuck in there with the bomb. You're stuck in a bomb shelter with them. You could work out a few moves.
By the
You have
way,
a
I
little
will
bit of
tell
time.
you that I was sent at least 2 scripts that had a meet cute in a bomb shelter in Israel over the last year. So you are speaking the truth, my friend.
Yeah, I'm sure that you're going to have a very easy job selling that because every that is what everybody's buying. But I just want to say, Guy, I just want to finish it up with this because we have run out of time. I'll let you give a final thought. I saw your lips moving, but right now the Democrats are losing. The woke right is losing. They just had a poll out where the Republicans are at 36%. I want to say Democrats are at like 30%. They've lost at least 6 points of favorability going into the midterms. Gavin Newsom, of course, came out and called Israel an apartheid state. Obviously, he's against this war. And as people bring up, he's got one of the biggest Persian populations. So what does he do? He calls Israel an apartheid state, genocide. This is all to gain points. So he thinks he could run in 2028. That's how you know they're losing, when they're pulling out the worst of the worst to try to gain favor with the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And you know what? Screw you, Gavin Newsom. Screw you, left. Screw everybody on the woke right. Everybody that doubted President Trump. And Golan, that's what I started in the beginning. Nothing wrong with questioning him. There's nothing wrong. And he'll be the first person to say it. But doubting him is different because he has never done anything to let us down, purposely especially. And that's something we've been very big on this show. None of us ever questioned certain things. We always had faith. Even when we didn't know we should have it, we had faith. We had faith that he was going to get the hostages out. There were so many things that we said offline that we never said online because we just didn't.
One of the big calls we made online, by the way, was very early on when during the help was on the way crisis. Remember I don't know if you remember that we had this conversation.
Yeah, of course.
We were talking about the fact that the help was on the way, but help wasn't going to be instantaneous. But again, there were a whole lot of reasons why help was going to take time, but you had to understand that this was the way that superpowers move, and yeah. And I remember at the time that conversation was sort of fairly controversial. A lot of people were out there saying, he's let down the Iranian people, he's betrayed the protesters, it's Taco all over again. And on the show, we were talking about the fact that no, there's a lot of strategic logic to what's happening right now.
Yeah, one of the few people One of the few
emotionally
shows that actually brought this stuff up. And go
right.
on, just to close up, the U.S. and Israel are now targeting what he's exactly talking about. They're going after those IRGC people that mowed down the protesters so that people can go back on the streets.
That's right.
Promises made, promises kept. Help is on the way. Those people are going to be mowed down like the dirty dogs they are.
And by the way, he deliberately and specifically said, I want those people taken out, not just for the current safety, but also for retribution. That there is something to be said for taking out your enemies. And it doesn't always have to be this measured, careful thing when you're in the middle of a war like this. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. He said those people in 48 hours took out tens of thousands of innocent people who were protesting for their lives. And it's time for those people to feel the wrath of what happens when you do that, as he promised, and also allows all the protesters to be able to come back out again and stand tall and proud, which they've been doing nonstop anyway.
Justice without mercy.
Very well put.
And very well, guys.
Just a breaking story, by the way. The Senate failed to pass the War Powers Act. The president doesn't
I
need
already said that.
permission.
Did you? Yeah, I already
That must have been
reported
while
it.
I was on my way down to the
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, but no. You could repeat it because you probably say it a lot. You probably will have said it
No,
a
I
lot.
was just going to say the Senate passed failed to pass the War Powers Act. The Republicans held rank. Well done. Which means that the president doesn't need to ask the Congress's permission to continue the war and to continue the exceptional job that is being done. And it may be a small win, but it's an important small win. The House apparently has the same bill going through being voted on tomorrow. I don't understand why.
No, the House already passed it, I believe. Oh.
The House is doing it tomorrow for some reason. I have no idea why it's in reverse. That is beyond what I've had a chance to actually understand. But the fact that it didn't pass means the president still has a free hand as the commander-in-chief to work with the Secretary of War and continue winning this war.
Well, I'm happy you brought that up because you corrected what I had said earlier on the show. So thank you for that correction. And yes,
I also
by
have
the way,
to correct that I was wrong. It was Reagan, not Nixon.
But I will.
And also, it was just a rumor. It's just still a rumor about the pilot's father. Okay,
right. Okay, so we're issuing corrections on the spot. Look at how good we are at this. But also, just again, for all of you who are following along and understanding what's going on with the war powers thing, all the voting on all of this, presidents have historically been allowed to respond to immediate threats, to conduct limited military operations, to protect U.S. personnel and citizens and interest abroad. This is what we've talked about this several times on the show. The idea is that presidents can initiate a military action without a formal declaration of war. They do not need Congress's permission to do so. And so far, it is going to remain that way. And if it does change, it will fundamentally change everything that's happened throughout the history of the United States, as we've talked about in the past, with Grenada and Libya and Kosovo and all the examples we've given 100 times. But this is really important what's happening right now, because again, this is not the last time you're going to see the opposition try to fundamentally change some of the core rules of the United States in order to hamstring their opposition. And in doing so, hamstring the United States. Watch this space for this to happen again.
And it's also just been announced there's a new show coming out called The Former Politicians of Washington, D.C. It'll be starring Jasmine Crockett.
Oh, poor Jazzy.
It'll be starring Al Green and Dan Crenshaw, and it'll also be starring, hopefully, Thomas Massey. Look for it. It'll be an amazing show. Wouldn't that be a great show, by the way?
It would be a great show to not watch.
No, come on. Putting those 5 people in a house. Can we
put them on an island and make them have to try to survive?
I'll tell you what, I would be okay putting them in a house, locking all the doors and all the windows, and just leaving weapons around like the movie Clue, and then whatever happens, happens. That I would be okay with.
And then saying Nazis can't leave.
Now,
okay. It's one of my favorite movies. Even though De Niro's in it, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. In Bronx Tale. Okay, we've totally run out of time. It's really late where you guys are, so thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And I was very giddy during this show, and I am very giddy right now. And it has nothing to do with that we're blowing people. Well, it does, that we're blowing the bad guys to smithereens. Yes, it actually does. I'm happy that America and President Trump has brought us back. I am happy that we are doing real good in the world, as we always have. We are the greatest nation in the world. And you know what? It's on display right now. It's on your news stations all across. So don't listen to the crap. Listen to us and listen to the people that want to see the successes.
Just us. Just listen to us.
Just listen to us. Okay. On that note, I want to thank you both. It's really late where you guys are, so thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We'll be out tomorrow. We're not sure what time yet, and you can find us everywhere at thedailycheatsheet.com. I want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world wherever you are. God bless you all.